Hey, what's up YouTube? Back out here in the woodshop with another video here at Hazu Talks. Today's going to be like a mishmash of topics that I have planned, but I'm going to do it pretty quick, get through these. Just wanted to, try to be a little more consistent though, and put out more content, so wanted to get a video out here. We're going to start off with the Daily Wire. Those of you who know what Daily Wire is, that's Ben Shapiro's network, and one of the guys' name is something Boring, Jeremy Boring, maybe, co-owner of the Daily Wire. And they're like a full-scale production company at this point. They're making movies, they're doing news, broadcasts. Of course they're labeled left-wing, right-wing, because of their rhetoric. And they've got, Candace Owens is associated with them, somebody Walsh, Andrew Clavin, Ben Shapiro, and I forget the other guys, but Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh filmed a video. I actually challenge you to watch it. Matt Walsh filmed a movie this year entitled, What is a Woman? Seems pretty evident, right, and self-explanatory. I live in a house with my wife, my 2 adult daughters, and my 2 female grandchildren, and my son. So me and my son, and then 4 women, 5 women. I'm pretty sure I have a pretty good grasp on what a woman is. But I know in today's day and age that would go over well. But to hell with it. They're women. My wife is a mother, my daughter's a mother, my other daughter's an aunt, and my granddaughters are just that. They're granddaughters. Last night they were hit at the premiere when they were releasing the movie. They were hit with a denial of service hack, and it shut down hundreds of thousands of people trying to log in and watch the premiere. It still was an overwhelming success for them, and as a matter of fact, on account of it, more people subscribed to the Daily Wire yesterday than any other day in the history of the Daily Wire. So whatever this woke culture was that was trying to shut down the idea that you can't define a woman the way our new Supreme Court Justice said, and that other woman that was testifying in front of the House recently who, said you can't define a woman. Well, to say that Matt Walsh does a pretty good job of exposing the ridiculousness of that ideology that, nobody can define what a woman is. So I challenge you to watch it. And even better is, I saw a premiere or a preview, which it's going to get a lot of heat. It's going to be pretty intense, but it should be an interesting watch. But Candace Owens does she's doing a movie premiere, a documentary movie about George Floyd and who he was, and it's going to be pretty intense because some of the interviews are, instead of interviewing like the people that were close to him that, clearly are going to miss him and love him, because everybody loves, you love, even some of the sickest people in the world have people that love them. I'm not judging George Floyd. I don't, how he died was tragedy, but it seems a lot of people who would have spoke out about him as not being the hero or whatever, the way he's been cast in the media, were silenced and not allowed to share what they think. So anyway, it's going to be pretty compelling and pretty intense. So, but that's again at the Daily Wire. Here we go. Double inflation by October. There's all kinds of warnings out there on a lot of these news programs, and even like people in government now are starting to warn. You think inflation is bad now? They're saying by October, look for everything that you're paying for now that's doubled in price since last year to be doubled again. To give you a little perspective, that would be $10 a gallon gasoline, $12 a gallon diesel for my truck. That would be milk at $10 a gallon. That would be eggs at $6 a dozen. That would be, bread and meat products. Probably, if they're even on the shelves, $8, $9, $10 a loaf. Meats, I remember last summer, fillets at Costco being $47 a pound. If that holds true come October, you're looking at $90 a pound fillet. You're talking about $25 a pound meats. You're talking $10 a pound chicken. I mean, this is unreal. Strawberries. My wife buys strawberries year round. And I'm like, what's wrong with you? Excuse me. But yeah, strawberries right now are like $5 a plate. And you're talking October, they're gonna be $10 a plate? Like, this is gonna be unreal. We're definitely headed for something, some kind of crisis, some kind of like revolution, some kind of like conflict, because I really believe in my heart that the American people are not going to stand up for this. Whatever this thing is right now, whatever is being orchestrated and handled, whatever they talked about in Davos a week ago, about how to control us, what are we? Mouth breathers? I forget what they call us. Like, basically they treat us like we're stupid animals, like cattle. Whatever. Double inflation till by October. Even the FDA came out and said that we're going to have a food crisis around that time period. So you're talking about a really expensive, hard winter. According to a bunch of sources and authorities on the matter. With that said, Australia just declared a climate emergency. Now, I'm pretty sure they had the same climate this year as they had last year. I don't know what they're basing the emergency on. But the interesting thing about a country declaring an emergency of some sort is they get to institute their emergency powers. This seems to be the new trend in government, right? We just saw during the trucker protest in Ottawa that Justin Trudeau declared emergency powers, so he could basically declare martial law, more or less, create curfews, and impound people's trucks and private property to get them out of Ottawa, and at the same time seize their bank accounts and even the GoFundMes and things that were set up for the people that were in support of the trucker protest. They were able to seize that money. You're talking $10 million got seized, and then the Canadian government decided to just donate that to whatever they felt like, which is probably, lining the pockets of some bullshit corrupt politician in Canada somewhere, because they have them as well. But that's Australia declaring a climate emergency. We are entering a time where we're going to have a food emergency. We just went over that with our inflation. Right now, go to any city in America and you've got a violence crisis occurring every day. As I said in last night's video, watch that little streaming ticker on the bottom of your news program and see how violent and destructive the cities and the towns are becoming. You know what I mean? And how the police, either don't have the power and authority to respond, or they don't have the manpower to respond, or whatever it is, As we discussed in last night's video, Janet Yellen and Jamie Dimon talking about a financial hurricane and the stock market, and we're about to enter a recession. We're about to go through a housing crisis. In many cities across the nation right now, towns, it's quickly turning from a seller's market to a buyer's market. And with them raising interest rates, that's only going to add to the problems. And once there's too much inventory, that's going to drive the prices of the houses back down. Houses aren't going to sell, and and there's a downturn in the economy. And then all of a sudden, if houses aren't in demand, the larger builders stop building or slow down building, and there you go. Now we have a housing crisis. So we're going to be in the middle of a food crisis, a housing crisis, a financial crisis. They're constantly declaring a climate crisis, right? All around us. I mean, what are they talking about now? Getting rid of fossil fuels completely when 150 million internal combustion engines are on the road? You think you can just end that? You think you can get rid of trucks in general and buses and trains and turn everything to battery? There's not enough lithium mined on the planet in all of human history to power that kind of infrastructure of motors and whatnot. And guess what? We don't have the infrastructure here in America to make that many motors, to make that many electric vehicles. It's impossible. It would probably take 20 years to replace every vehicle on the road today with an electric vehicle. And we don't have the power grid to support it anyway. And yet this is what our politicians are ramming down our throats. They're ramming down our throats that everything's got to become green or the world's going to end in 11 years now. Well, 10 years, I guess, since AOC said that. But what it means to me and what I think is all these things are setting us up for them to cause some kind of crazy crisis or emergency crisis that we're living through so that they can institute emergency powers. So they can then, again, to start printing money like a copier just running nonstop, just spitting $100 bills out so that they can line their own pockets, line the pockets of all their friends, and all the corporate businesses and whatnot, and all the lobbyists and all the people that are, in the know. And us tax cattle, as we're called, we'll be sitting there holding the bill at the end. You should remember that in the last 2 years, they printed roughly $17 trillion. I remember when Alex Jones was big, and of course, yeah, if you're not a fan of mine, you're going to say, of course you would like Alex Jones. Nah, he was okay, a little crazy, a little out there for me, but he was hovering the target with a lot of this stuff. And he used to talk about the national debt, and I remember going on that debt clock when our national debt was like $20 trillion. And I'd be like watching that number run, and I was amazed at how fast it was going up. And that was only like 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And now our debt clock is at like $35 trillion. $35 trillion. That's like $150,000 for every man, woman, or child in America, basically, that we owe in order to clear the slate of our debt for all the money that's being printed. Think about that. The value of our debt is $150,000 for every man, woman, or child in this country right now. Where in my family, that would be, in my current household, that would be 7 of us times 150. That's 7, 8, 9. That's $1 million. That means me and my wife, my 2 daughters, my son, and my 2 granddaughters are worth $1 million in debt. $1 million. Where is it? Who has that $1 million? That's 7 of us in a country of roughly 330 or 340 million people. 7 of us are worth $1 million. What do you where is that money? Who's got that money? Where is it? Last thing I want to talk about, and this is a little off subject, but it adds to it because I do also think that this is by design on some level. Or at least not that they designed it to happen, but by design that they don't do anything about it. I've been watching a lot of documentaries lately on, I like watching Intervention. It's a TV show on, I forget what channel. It's pretty neat though. Really, as somebody who's struggled with addiction in my life at different points, Those shows kind of fascinate me, and I can relate, and at the same time, I'm interestingly, like, mortified watching them sometimes. Partially because I see myself in it, and partially because it's just too much sometimes. But there's another channel I watch, guy who does nothing but like small interviews with people, prostitutes, pimps, drug addicts, sex offenders, children and families of incest. Like, it's called Soft White Underbelly, and I recommend you check it out because it's a pretty interesting watch. And he recently did a drive-through of a city that I've been to or an area of the city that I've been to many times in my life, called Kensington in Philadelphia. And the open-air drug market and the open-air drug use that gets done there is mind-blowing. And I'm not for a second, like, I feel bad for these people addicted to fentanyl. I really do. What you're seeing out there is not heroin anymore. And I'm knock on wood, and my family, none of us are really addicted to, have ever been addicted to heroin or fentanyl. But I'm really cautious of it, existing. And I've never been one to like push on my kids to not do things and whatnot, because I know teenagers and young adults are exactly just that, and it doesn't really matter what you say, they're going to do what they're going to do anyway. But I've always kind of pushed back against the idea of opioids mostly because I know how much I enjoyed them when I was young, how easy it would be to take Vicodin or Percocet every day, and whatnot. So I just to see how easy you can get addicted to it, and mixing it with alcohol and whatnot, and how dangerous that can be. So that's the only thing that I've really kind of pushed back on. I was like, you know what, don't do that. But I'm fascinated by this open drug use. I'm fascinated by these people on fentanyl that are just sitting on the street, injecting, and then they're just passed out and they're bent over, standing up still, like dead asleep. I'm fascinated by the addicts who overdose, and then the police give them a shot of Narcan or several shots of Narcan to wake them up. How angry they become and agitated that you just ruined their high. How, like, whatever park is near Kensington, that there's people just lining the street, and needles and syringes and drug packets all over the place, and people just shooting up right in the public, and the police are sitting in the car right next to them, and nobody does anything. Like, I'm fascinated and I'm mortified by this, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, as a person who's aware of politics and the things that go on, how is it that a city can function and allow this place to exist? There's got to be a reason that they allow it, that they let it exist. And I'm not one to believe in those drug houses that you can go there and in those safe spaces for you to go, do drugs. No. Especially on taxpayer dollars, absolutely not. I'm not about that. That's not for me. I know it's a tough addiction. I know it kills a lot of people, but that doesn't mean that you should have a safe space to go do it at. You know what I mean? If anything, all the money that gets invested in any of that should get invested into programs to help people become clean, and programs to help people get jobs and give them something to something to work on, and give them some kind of hope in life. Because it's the hopelessness and the helplessness that leads to this kind of drug use and addiction, I challenge you to, if you've ever read anything in like the 1970s or 60s, there was a thing called the Rat Utopia, or the Rat Experiment. And it's really like, it shows you it's a several-year study that was done with rats. They created an environment and a population of rats in an enclosed space, and they fed them and gave them drugs, and water, and they didn't have to work, and they didn't have to work as a community. They didn't have to, it just showed you sort of the demise of because we're closely related to rats in the biological animal world, and it just shows you like kind of where we're headed or where we could head. Their entire like civilization, this rat utopia, collapsed in I think like 7 years or something like that. It just was like decimated. Like, but it's super, super interesting. Like, there were ones that they called the pretty ones, and they were like beautiful and big, and they were fit, and they spent all day long. They took all the food and water, and they had it up on the higher levels of the thing, and all they did was spend all day long grooming themselves. And you know what they didn't do? They didn't procreate. They didn't create new rats. They weren't interested in that. They were interested in themselves and their life at that particular moment, and that's how they lived. Meanwhile, all the ones down the bottom, in like the common city, if you will, were all addicted, and they were procreating like crazy, and they were cannibalizing each other, and there was violence, and there was mayhem, until they were all dead, and they were all addicted to whatever drugs they were putting in their water supply, and they just stayed there. And what something interesting was, though, is it was environmental, because if you took a rat that was addicted to the drug that they were dosing them with, and you took them out of the environment with all the other drug-induced rats, and you put them with a group of rats that were clean, this rat would no longer seek drugs. It would clean itself up, just to show you that those kind of things could be done. So anyway, it was called the Rat Utopia, or the rat experiment, if you will. There's plenty of footage and literature about it for you to read, and it's a really, really interesting read. I think that's it. I'm going to keep it short tonight. My granddaughters are asleep. I got to get back in the house. But I just wanted to go over a few things, and that's it. Hit like and subscribe to my channel, YouTube, here at How Zoo Talks. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.